With the NFL divisional round set to begin on Saturday, it will have 4 matchups, 2 of which will be played on Saturday, one of which has the ability to be the juiciest one of them all. Barring the second-year quarterback leading the visitor, shows us why he has the ability to be one of the most elite quarterbacks in the game in the future. Want to find out who that quarterback is and who the opponent is? Stay tuned to find out on Gridiron Gab Pro Style.
The autumn winds move like the thunderous waves of Neptune's sacred palace. And here, amongst the blackened soil, lies the ragged hands, worn, torn, and callous. They await with cunning and vicious prowess, for the warriors have returned.
Come on, Dutch! Don't do it! Woo! No way! Woo! 85! Crying out loud! You're making me, you're driving me nuts!
But behold,
Welcome back, Gabbers. Thank you all so much for joining us on another edition of Gridiron Gab Pro Style. Of course, you gabbing with the one and only Mr. CeeLo. And hope you guys are doing great here as we are getting ready for the divisionals of the NFL playoffs. But before we get started, I hope all you guys are safe and sound, and we want to send our prayers and our deepest, serious concerns to all of those affected by the wildfires out in Los Angeles. We understand, we know how we've heard and we've seen the photos, and we give you our hearts and our deepest sympathies in this situation. We hope you guys, we hope that you guys are able to return to normal soon. And we also want to give a huge gab out to the firefighters that are out there risking their lives, even as we speak, attempting to getting these things resolved. May God be with you and keep you guys safe. And our prayers go out to you as well as your families. Thank you for all that you do. Now, the NFL playoffs have been nothing short of interesting in its first week, or aka Super Wildcard Week. And we got to see on display why we still play the games. As we lead into Jayden Daniels and the Washington Commanders waltzing into Ford Field to face off against the mighty 15-2 Detroit Lions. Now, many people on paper would look at this game and they would say, oh, well, Detroit's got this. They manhandled Minnesota a couple of weeks ago, and now they're possibly getting David Montgomery back. This ought to be This ought to be a shoe-in, right?
cut it out.
And realistically, this is a game where, much like the wild card game, we can look back at that game and say, did the Commanders even belong in that game? And the answer was no. Because we look at that game and there were moments that the Commanders looked exceptionally good, but Tampa Bay was winning on the scoreboard. And this is not going to be one of those games where you can get down to a team like Detroit. Now, I can concur that, remember watching the Minnesota game, there were missed opportunities by the Minnesota Vikings, and it allowed the Lions to hang around, and the Lions finally found its offense, found its swagger, and from that moment, it was lights out for the Vikings. So, while we're discussing that, we have to discuss the possibility of whether or not the weaknesses of the Commanders is going to come into play, which is still their offensive line. And surprisingly, their running game. And the reason why I say that is because they don't have a particular number one. I think that's going to have to be a major need for this team. And I have 2 prospects that would fit in nicely in this offense. But looking at this game, you do have Robinson and you do have Austin Eckler, who presumably was saved for this typical moment, in my opinion. But looking deeper than that, we watch this game and we say to ourselves, where do the Lions have a weakness at? Well, you could argue there are small, minute weaknesses within that secondary. And ultimately, you're going to have to create opportunities with your best player, which is Terry McLaurin. And I thought the one thing they did a phenomenal job in the Tampa Bay game was utilizing Austin Ekeler in the passing game, which to me opened up opportunities for McLaurin later on. Now, we do know Detroit, Aaron Glenn likes to bring pressure when he can. So this is going to be a situation where McLaurin is going to have possibilities. Can Jayden Daniels deliver? The other aspect of it is Jayden Daniels presents an all-encompassing ability. His feet. And honestly, I guarantee you Glenn's going to be aware of that. He may double spy Daniels. This could be a huge break for the Commanders because as we've seen with many quarterbacks that get double spied, if they have eccentric playmaking ability, they're going to be able to move the pocket. They're going to be able to get out of the pocket and be able to break down plays. And especially with Daniels, he's able to get on the perimeter and he's able to do something with Terry McLaurin. And this is not going to be a game where if you're Detroit, you're going to have to score on every possession. I'll tell you why, because I feel like what the Commanders are going to try to do is they're going to try to play that same game that they played against Tampa Bay. They're going to play the 40-minute keep-away game. That's what they're going to do. They're going to run these these 2nd and 8s, 3rd and 3s, and get off and keep the drive moving. That's what they ultimately want to do. They want to slow the game down to a crawl. Detroit, with its high-powered offense, is going to come out, and I believe it's going to be one of those fights where they come out and score quickly, back off the field, then the Commanders come back on the field and stack first downs on top of first downs on top of first downs and on top of first downs. And before you know it, you're going into halftime. You've lost the time of possession by 19 minutes. And then you're wondering why you can't get any offensive rhythm, even when you have a chance to put the game out of reach. Let's say Detroit goes up 21-10, and Washington gets football, start the second half, and they go in and they take off 8 minutes and score 6, and it's 21-17. Then you're talking about 7.5 to 8 minutes left in the third quarter, and you go 3 and out. Well, guess what? You've already given up the ball 28 minutes. And guess what? In 2 to 3 minutes, you're already back off the field, and you're in a 21-17 dogfight. And you've only got anywhere from 5 to 4.5 minutes left in the third quarter. And guess what? If the Washington Commanders come out and just run 8 minutes off the clock, and let's say for the sake of argument, they get a field goal. So it's 21-20, and there's roughly 12 to 11.5 minutes left in the fourth quarter. Now the pressure's on for you to even get a score. And I know a lot of people are saying, what is this dude talking about? I'm talking about pretty much how the Tampa Bay game went. How the Commanders were consistently spitting out long, drawn-out drives. Something the Vikings did against the Detroit Lions, but they kept going for touchdowns. And as we saw against that Viking defense, they're susceptible to being beaten on that back end. That Lions defense can be beaten on the back end. Now the question is, can the Commanders' offensive coordinator drum up enough play designs that can get them in one-on-one matchups? I think he can do it. I think Cliff Kingsbury can do it. He's shown the ability to do it in many cases. I think this is going to be an interesting game. It's going to be Aaron Glenn against Cliff Kingsbury, and I think ultimately this is going to be one where we see what Aaron Glenn is capable of when it comes to uniqueness. I think he's going to have to be very unique in this game. He's going to have to put not only his best foot forward in this game to move on, but he's going to have to be able to contain Jayden Daniels, whom, in my opinion, a lot of people are going to say he's got it in the bag. I think he does, but this could cement the Rookie of the Year talk right here. This right here could cement it, an upset by not the Cardiac Commanders.
Clutch Commanders. Clutch
Commanders.
Bruh.
Now, looking at the Lions side, the Commanders as a whole are a football team on defense that is predicated by guys like Bobby Wagner, Frankie Louvu, and Jeremy Chinn. This team was rebuilt by Dan Quinn to look a lot like that Dallas defense. However, if Detroit wants to gash them running the football, that is something they're going to have to do. But the what I look at is I look at this Tampa Bay game and saw where Bucky Irvin had 17 carries, 77 yards. So that tells me that they still have the ability to run the football have had the football run. They can run the ball against the Commanders. So the worst case scenario for this football team, if you're the Commanders, if Detroit decides to give you a heavy dose of David Montgomery and Jahmyr Gibbs, that's not something you want to see. And they have been so good. Penei Sewell is one of these guys that, oh my gosh, you can't say enough about him. He is the modern day Trent Williams. That's what he is. I mean, now everybody's going to be looking for the next Penei Sewell. If you want to run the football, that's the dude you got to have. Like I said, Trent Williams is up around 36, 37. There's your reincarnation right there, Penei Sewell. You can almost, as a defender, follow Penei Sewell, and that's where the football's going when they're running. I would say about 75% of the time, that's where you need to look. Because this guy is nothing more than a bulldozer. Very athletic at his position. Just so good, knows what he's doing. Is just that dang good. Where he goes, this running game for Detroit goes. And I don't know if guys like Frankie Louvu and Jeremy Chinn are going to be able to get penetration here. That's going to be the big key, is are they going to be able to penetrate and put the ball in Jared Goff's hands and jam up these receivers such as St. Brown. This is not where you want to be. Amon-Ra St. Brown, once again, is just balling out. He's a little guy that nobody looked at in the draft. He fell down everybody's draft boards, and he's just continued to be one of the top wideouts in the National Football League. And I believe the Commanders are going to have their hands full. I think ultimately this is going to be a game that, unless the Commanders can stop the running game and control the clock, as I said, this is going to be a tough game. Now, I look at that Tampa Bay game and I say to myself, wow, that was impressive. And I'm just going to be honest with you. I like Bucky Irving, but I'm not completely sold on him like I am Sonic and Knuckles. I'm just not. This is a totally different 1-2 punch. Bucky Irving is Bucky Irving. He's not a 1-2 punch. He is just Bucky Irving. But looking at this game and analyzing it, it would not shock me if the Commanders pulled the upset. But I also got to look at the fact the way they handled the Vikings and the way they just absolutely just slammed the door shut on them. Jaden Daniels is special. And I love Frankie Louvu and I love Jeremy Chinn. But I think this is where the Clutch Commanders is shut down. I got the Lions in this one. I don't think Jared Goff goes off. I think the running game goes off. I think it finally gets exposed. I think Dan Campbell sticks with it. And I think it proves to be a little bit too much for the Clutch Commanders. Let me know what you guys think. Do you think Dan Campbell is going to be the difference in this game? Do you think Dan Quinn's going to be the difference in this game? Or do you think Jaden Daniels comes out and shows why not only is he the Rookie of the Year, but he could also be a future MVP? Make sure you go to my Facebook page and my Facebook group at Gridiron Gab Pro Style. Also, make sure you check out my Instagram at Mr. CeeLo so you can find out all the shenanigans that I'll be caught up with once the season is a wrap. But until the next time, same Gab channel, same Gab platform.
But behold, there is a warm breeze that comes from the west. The blazing sounds of victory fuel their everlasting quest. It is a call to arms, for they are here. An army that has the will to challenge and the will to dare.